Wall Street stock futures are up modestly ahead of today's trading. I'm Dave.
The Morning Extra, live every weekday morning from 6 to 9 a.m. only on Xtra 106.3.
The morning got off to a quick start here in the Xtra 106.3 studio. We're debating language and the fact that some people can say words and some people can't say words, and which ones are acceptable and when it's acceptable. And it all got started with a conversation about Morgan Wallen and the shows that are coming up, for today and tomorrow.
Well,
sold out.
It's literally all the guy down the hall's fault.
Well, that's right.
Well,
exactly.
Our friend Hudson Mason, working over on the sports end, he's going to that show, and the weird part that has happened because of the controversy Morgan got involved in. If you go to the show, apparently you're racist. Mm-hmm. And if you actually listen,
I just learned that today.
If you listen to the audio he was involved in, it sounds like a bunch of drunken friends coming home, and again, it's from a Ring doorbell. And again, long story short, and we all talked about it, there were things that we grew up with language-wise where we didn't think anything of them. We just knew, okay, that's kind of offensive to people, to now have everything ratcheted up to 10.
Yeah,
where things that we were all just we grew up with and just said, oh, yeah, you're derogatory towards me or my culture or my family, but you know what? We're just goofing around with it. Now, that applies to everything other than the N-word, which always, when I was a kid, I was like, that's the ugliest word that's in the English language. Exactly right. But so many of these things that we grew up with culturally, no matter where we grew up with, that language has now been heightened to a level where you can't even possibly consider using it.
No doubt.
Yeah, and we talked, look, I'm Jewish, so I'm allowed to do this now. All right, so deal with it. But Luis knows. Luis is from New York and stuff, but we started talking about the term Jewish American princess, which is shortened to Jap. And in New York, that's just
never even heard of that.
Right. Well, again, I grew up with it just because I had so many Jewish friends. They would use it towards girls that just kind of carried themselves in a certain way.
They didn't have to be Jewish.
No.
Well, a lot of times it was.
In that case,
but a lot of times it became more of a mentality, how she carries herself.
Which is what, because Rhino, you said like Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton would be considered a Jap. She'd be considered, even though she's not Jewish, you can label her that way because of the way she acts. She's a little princess. She uses daddy's money.
She's very believes that she's above everyone else. She's entitled. Yes, very much so.
Yeah, she parks, when she goes to Whole Foods, she parks her Tesla in the emergency parking area. Right. So AOC would be considered now kind of a Jap. She thinks she's better than everybody else. She has money. She does this. She does that. That's the kind of mentality that a Jewish American princess in that manner would, portray. I don't know if you're allowed to say it anymore because, it was just so common when I was growing up.
Same
that
with me.
It wasn't insulting. It wasn't, nobody got insulted by it. Even girls that were labeled that way, like a lot of girls that I went to high school with in Syosset, we would say, hey, she's a Jap. And if she heard it, she'd be like, yeah, so what? I am.
I had a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, Carly Kaufman, who was, for lack of a better term, she was very into sports. Wasn't a tomboy. She didn't play any sports. She was very into Spurs
just
basketball and loved sports.
Yeah.
She was the first one who would be like, oh, if that girl's way too princessy, that's what she would refer to as. She'd be like, she's a Jewish American princess. I'd never heard the term until I was in high school and hearing girls like that refer to other girls. But that's the sort of language nowadays. I don't even think you can use that on a regular basis.
I don't think you can either.
Yeah, I've never heard it, so I don't know where it lies on the scale. You know what I mean?
I'm going to have to call back to New York and ask. I know Nick Constantine, who is one of our sales guys, or I guess head of, I don't know what his.
He's like one of our managers.
VP of sales.
He went to the same high school I did, Syosset, so he'd understand exactly that. But he goes back and talks to all the guys and everybody back there. I'm gonna have to ask him if it's still allowed to be used.
Yeah, well, that's a great question because I don't have any
but it's
idea
laying out
whatsoever.
the language. This is we talk about culture wars. We talk about things that are going on, and whether it's woke, anti-woke, anything else like that. The language is also part of this war, and what is allowed that we grew up with, and what is no longer allowed.
It's amazing how good the left is at manipulating. We talked about it a million times, but manipulating language. Even recently with the recession. Oh, well, this is not a recession.
No, it can't be. Look what's happening.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. As long as I've been alive, is a recession.
And then you even heard reporters, Rhino, that would say, well, the traditional acceptance of the definition is this. They would even specify it to point out Los's point.
Yeah, well, and then they're going to distract by using labor numbers and say that's more important than what the economy is actually doing. doing, and they're using false numbers. That's all they're doing. They're playing the game. They're playing the game they always do. They shuffle it. They use the math they want to show their numbers. It's like anything else.
We were told to get used to a new normal, and he did, and that administration did everything they could. And again, if you believe in the whole 2030 project, you will not be able to afford anything, and you'll be very happy in that lifestyle.
But the thing that I would push back on a little bit, if you're part of the new right as you described it. I mean, I think you may be the first person I ever heard label it that, the new right, that's not afraid to be push back and be aggressive.
In your face about it.
Yeah, in your face about it.
Because and for years we've been very live or let live. Just leave me with my guns. Don't tax me. Right.
For becoming more comfortable in my own skin, and Rhino's helped me with that tremendously, and Los, I think you're going to as well. But it's interesting to me how that conservatives saying when it came to the recession and the definition, they would say the traditional definition, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, stop saying the traditional definition. We all know what that is. Stop giving it the qualifier. Stop. You're almost playing into their hands by agreeing that there is another definition.
Yeah.
Well, I think Rhino has said this, and we have kind of talked about how the changing of the language and it's a bit of a shell game. Really, to me, if you want to talk about the new right and how you attack it, don't tweet out recession, because recession is just a word that can be manipulated. Tell people enjoy the fruits of your labor to the extent that you have. This is about affecting your buying power. This is about making you poor. That is exactly what's going on now. Now, if you want to wrap that up in the word recession, great. Tell people what it's actually an assault about,
trying to accomplish.
And this is being done intentionally to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret that they want to get to a socialist society. It's no secret that they want to copy what China's doing. They just want to do it what they think is in a more to capitalize on all the money. And you can see the money going whichever way. If you want to use George Soros as an example of how you take money and you redistribute it to get to what you want with Stacey Abrams, Joe Manchin now, and all the others that he's funding and what he does, to know there's no construction going on, but there's bricks there. If you want to throw them through windows, do it, because we're going to get our message out one way or another. But the eventual idea is that we all stand in line. We all get the same food.
You're all poor.
Yeah, but we all listen to the government and look to the government for help. That's what they want. They want that power over us, and they won't stop, and it's not going to stop, but it's all now based on climate change. So
right, that's the vehicle.
That's their vehicle to get everybody on the same plane.
Well,
you got to destroy energy first.
You've got to go ahead and choke off energy first. With everything happening in Sri Lanka was about energy, and then also farming.
Yep.
If you can weaken the world's food supply system and their energy system, now you can do a lot of stuff. And there's one thing that has happened for the global elites. COVID was such a gift for them because they realized how easily fear